Welcome to Afros and Audio's Black History Month interview series. My name is Talib Jasir, founder and CEO of Afros and Audio Podcast Festival, the first two-day conference for and by Black independent podcast creatives and audio professionals. I'm excited to spotlight 28 outstanding indie podcast creatives who answered the call to be a part of the series. Today, my guest is Walter Gannon II. Welcome and thank you for being here. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm excited to be a part of this series that you're putting together. So thank you for creating the space for this. And yeah, I just appreciate being here, man.
All right, man. Thank you. So tell us a bit about yourself. We'll definitely get into the podcast, but let us know about Walter.
Yes, I am, of course, a podcaster, a creative. Recently, I've been describing myself as the Black Mr. Rogers, just your friendly neighborhood guy, just helping people out, spreading awareness, joy, and all those things, man. So, yeah, I enjoy creating spaces and resources for people looking to experience new growth in their career, entrepreneurship wise, creativity, and just being that support beam, helping people find and build their community. So that's me.
Okay, that's awesome, man. Tell us a little bit about Boss Locks, and I know that that is the podcast and where you create from, but I love the story behind Boss Locks in general and why you even came on the scene with that as your mission. So talk a little bit about that.
All right, I appreciate that. Yeah. So I started Boss Locks. It was kind of this beginning period for me as I was getting transitional outside of college into the working world, continuing to grow as a Black man and someone with locks. But I was, when I first stepped out, my plan was really to be the Black Gary Vee. That's what I wanted to create content about. I was going to create a whole show, a marketing agency about social media, because at that time, people did not take social media seriously. They're like, yeah, you can't grow a business on Facebook. Like, imagine that, like looking back, like during that period of time, people like, oh yeah, social media. No, it's just for games, play. You don't need it for business. Now it's like, you have to have it. But anyways, that was my goal, to really teach people about that. But I wasn't really connecting to that content right then. What really drew me was having conversations about natural hair, specifically about natural hair in professional environments. Because at the time I was graduating, people were telling me, okay, yeah, you're getting ready to enter the world. Now you got to cut your locks if you want to enter, get a good job, be taken seriously. And, they were right to an extent, right? Because at the same time, there was a big court ruling that companies had the right to dismiss, not hire someone, all based on their natural hair. They said hair was not tied to race. It's kind of ridiculous, right? But companies were legally in their right. So here I was looking to learn how to get a job. I was already nervous just entering the workforce, but on top of that, I figured out, how can I do it as a Black person? How can I do it with my locks? So I started to just reach out to people I knew who had locks and who had a job, just to learn how they did it. And then I was encouraged to really create a show all around that. So I set off on a challenge to find bosses with locks and hear their stories and share them with people who were in a position like I was, still building that confidence, still learning what it meant to have natural hair and how to do it all, thrive, not just survive, but to truly thrive. So
Mhm.
that's how it started. And now I'm just continuing to amplify Black voices, create resources for Black professionals, and support organizations like yourself.
Appreciate that, man. Yeah, I had locks for 10 years myself. Now I couldn't grow a piece of hair if I wanted to. But I had locks for 10 years and been about 10 years since I had them. But always working in industry, corporate America, you realize that that is one of the gatekeeping opportunities that that system of prejudice and bias and racism gets to have when it comes to us and our Black bodies and our and us being in spaces. So I think it's really important work that you're doing, especially since we're still working to dismantle laws that are in our school systems and that sort of thing, that says the hair that grows out of our head is not professional or worthy of being in spaces. Um, it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous argument, but we know that we're still up against a lot in our society, which in 2023 is It's wild.
It is wild. We had so many different campaign, like marketing campaigns, pushes, cases of like students, high school students getting suspended, not because they were doing anything bad. They were getting great grades, but because their locks didn't meet this new dress code. And I really thought we're about to have that law passed federally, but they had a recent ruling once again. They're like, nah,
Mhm.
we're not passing that federally. No, some of y'all states you could do it, but that's not going to be a thing. And it's like, wow, we still got long ways to go after all of that. So yeah, I think there's still a lot of work to be done. We know it's ridiculous, but a lot of people simply don't care.
Yeah, and then you have people that look like us that say, "Listen, I conformed, I did it. I'm doing it in the respectable way that I've been taught and we've been socialized. So get with it, or I'll take the job, no problem."
Exactly.
So we're always up against several things at once. That's what the whole intersectionality of it is not just one way in which we are kept out or pushed out or choose our own way forward based on the things that we've been taught.
Mhm.
So I definitely commend the work that you're doing. It's important work. It really is.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting getting to highlight all the stories, and then now something we're getting into is really digging into like the people who are on the grounds doing the work behind the scenes, aren't even trying to be famous, but really just understanding why their work is important and how like something someone may think of as insignificant can have a ripple effect all the way down to something else. Because something I always talk about is like hair. It's really just a gateway conversation to how Black people are viewed and treated. So
Mhm. Absolutely. So talk about your podcast a bit. And is that obviously, as from what you said, it's an extension of the work that you started and out doing. Are you still having these conversations? Has it transformed into different conversations?
it has. That's one thing I did not anticipate. So like when I started it, I would say it was probably the peak of my imposter syndrome. It's still there to an extent, but it's kind of like a distant cousin at this point. But when I first started it, I had a lot of doubt if anyone would care. And then it turned into, oh, yeah, no, people care. People are here for it. Getting to meet a lot of people I did not expect to meet and also have conversations didn't expect to have either. The show put me in a position to do these live shows about political liberation. I got selected to be a part of LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program, the first ever program. I was a part of that first class, the first 100. And that was my opportunity to transition these conversations I had about the Black experience and hair and super focus in on people's experiences working while Black, especially just speaking to people who are feeling discouraged, not just about natural hair, but just being Black in general, how to handle microaggressions, what to look for in a new job, how to what to do when you don't feel like you belong anymore. It was a lot of really, really cool conversations with really dope creatives, leaders, all on LinkedIn. And that was a really dope opportunity that happened last year. And so now I'm getting ready to take all the different things I was doing in all these different areas and really just move as one in unison with my brands, other people's brands. And because this year, it's 2023, I look at it as the Jordan year. So that's like, okay, we really have to make a huge impact now. I think that I remember during the pandemic, someone once said to me that, oh, yeah, Black people have everyone's attention. People are excited about this and this, but it's going to pass. And I was like, okay, that's a wild thing. This is a white person saying that. There was a really bold statement to make, and it didn't. We still have everyone's attention, but I do see a shift happening where there's less of a care. There's still a lot of people who do find it important, a lot of allies, but I think this year is going to be a really pivotal one as far as like how we view ourselves,
Mhm.
how other people view us, and also who has ownership over things such as our culture and stuff like that. So um, I'm excited to just continue to push these conversations with my show, work with other creators, companies, and yeah, try to bring the message and empower other people to speak as well. So um, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Your first question was it about like strictly my podcast or?
Yeah, no, that was good.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, when did you, just getting back to everything you said was great. And definitely things that I wanted to learn about you, and I'm sure the audience as well. When did you start your podcast? And was that your initial why? Wanting just all the things that you just laid out, being able to talk to people and amplify voices?
Yeah. I started working on it in 20. I had my first interview in 2017. I knew I started to focus in on this in 2016 because that's when I was kind of challenged to cut my locks, and I was challenged to name a well-known CEO who was black, had locks, and didn't start out in entertainment. I couldn't name anybody. I could barely name a few black people. So
Mm,
that's what really started this whole journey. And then when I had the premise for the show, I was like, okay, yes, I'm here to prove that natural hair and professionalism do coexist. We're not tolerating hair discrimination. This is how you can exist as your true self. And that idea is still there, but I would say it evolved into, I don't even want to say greater because that was important, but it's evolved into something a bit deeper. And I think that's really at the core. It still relates to hair, still relates to all these other things, but how do we gain confidence in our identity, um, regardless of what anyone outside of our culture or within our culture says as well? How do we have control over self? How do we um, not even get respect from other people, but really just say, yeah, we don't really need you. We can still do this on our own and build amongst ourselves. How do we do that? How do we invite other people who are not Black to be true allies? Eh, how do we create this equal world that we talk about because we want it? And it's a matter of like, I feel like before we always ask for respect, and that's important. But at this point, I don't really care as much about respect from others, but just letting people just be known that I'm here and I
mhm.
exist. I
Yeah.
do matter, and there's not really much you could do about it. So
Mm.
that's kind of where I'm at now.
I mean, anything you know about me, we are aligned in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really about, I take care of me and mine. You figure out you and yours because
Right.
it
Yeah.
doesn't matter to me,
Yeah. We can all work together, but hey, if you don't
Yeah,
want to, but
yeah.
it's cool. I'm not here to.
Right. I mean, I truly believe that evolution is a thing, and if certain folks haven't evolved out of certain mindsets, then it's possible that it's not for you. Evolution, and so
Right.
we get to work with who you are now and focus our attention on how we have the self ownership, have the opportunities, create. One of the things that I really push inside of what we do, and why I enjoy people like you, is that there's an understanding that we have and always had what we need to sustain and thrive, and what distracts us from that is wanting it from somewhere else or outside of ourselves, or thinking that it's out there and not here. um and so once we're able to kind of lose that distraction and kind of focus on what we have tangibly, what we have, brilliance and genius and innovation, out of necessity, and also just because we can, so much will change for us inside of in most of the things that we do.
Mm.
So yeah, I definitely appreciate that perspective. I believe it as well. In the submission form, I asked you a simple question. Since I started my podcast, my life has changed in the following ways.
Mm.
Um, how would you like to expand on that?
Yes. You know, when I started the podcast, I started with that mission, but I also had incredibly grandiose dreams, envisioning me being on the Breakfast Club and all that stuff. That hasn't happened, and all that hasn't happened. But a lot of things that I thought would occur in like 10 years was very like really accelerated. Some cool things that happened for me was, like I mentioned before, being a part of that Creator Accelerator program. 100 people were selected to participate in their first ever creator program, and I was chosen. And that was cool, but it was even cooler when I saw who else was picked. I was like, oh, these are people that I follow and I take notes from. So that was a really dope moment for me, someone who was kind of bootstrapping and taking this grassroots approach to everything. And being presented on the stage with other people was a really cool moment to see, okay, this podcasting thing is not just a hobby, it's something that could become a full career. This could turn into me having a content company. So that was a moment for me to see what it could look like when your podcast works, as far as like being a profitable business, how close you actually are to making money, and then also realizing that, okay, just because you put something out doesn't mean you're going to make money. There's systems in place. There's so many different paths to take, and it's easy to get lost. So really learning how to reach those goals. So that was a really dope moment being there. I also am now working with a broadcast company, a major one, to launch a podcast network, and that's really major as well. All these things happen from me starting a podcast, talking about it, and now I'm able to teach other people how to do it, from like friends getting together to start a podcast to Fortune 500 businesses who want to use a podcast to reach their ideal prospects. And it all started from me just hitting record and putting it out there. This is crazy. And this is like, I mentioned before, I started working on it 2016, first interview 2017. I didn't publish anything till 2020. And I think I started to see some of these wins as far as me being more in the podcast industry. Wow, actually, it's crazy. That following year, 2021, is when I really started to see me being able to transition from that e-commerce marketing consultant world to being all in on media, podcasts, and everything like that. That's crazy. I didn't actually realize it till this very moment. It was like a 1 year difference, and boom,
Yeah.
I was in there.
Yeah. No, that's super important. And I know you and I have had some really great conversations in the past, both one-on-one. We met in person in Atlanta over the summer.
Yeah.
Really, really dope. Um, and yeah, it's one of those things. And as also a life coach to creatives and entrepreneurs, knowing where I was in my past, the hero's journey that it needed to take to start to get out of that imposter syndrome, be in a mattering conversation. Like, no, it does matter. The thoughts I have, the beliefs I have, the desires I have for myself and my community actually matter. And so inside of that, and just a testament to what you just said, I truly believe that as we begin to manifest our vision begins to manifest us. We have to start, and then everything else that we didn't even see because we were looking at our goals and our visions from where we currently were. The moment you step into it, it just expands and progresses from there. And so really, to encourage people, encourage creatives and entrepreneurs and anyone else that, start. That's how you finish. That's how you get there. That's how you get in the game.
That's facts.
Yeah.
Yeah, people talk about consistency all the time, and I think sometimes that advice can be misleading because it's not just being consistent. It's like being consistent with the mission, purpose, and having systems in place to actually be consistent. But it's just crazy to think like all of these things that you want can happen. But part of it is just showing up for real and just continuously showing up. So yeah, exactly everything you said.
Mhm.
It's really crazy on the other side thinking, and there's still so much more that could be achieved. But
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. And then there's that lifetime every day, right before we started recording. Every single day is that new opportunity to get what you came here for. you know.
Facts.
For real. So, you spoke about the LinkedIn program that you were a part of, and I know some people have seen that, kind of an advertisement and that sort of thing. But so I think it would be, um, be a great opportunity for people to understand a little bit more about that. How did you get involved? How did you apply, and kind of that whole process for you briefly?
Yeah, that's well, more than happy to speak about that. And I think one thing I would like to say is that uh, there are so many different social media platforms and places for you to exist. TikTok is like the most talked about one, and it definitely works to be there, but just because something is popular and does work doesn't mean that you feel as connected to it or it's the right platform for you. So something I learned from being in that program was just how important it is just to find that platform that fits for you and just be there, make that your main one, even though everyone's like, go to TikTok, it's a place to go. And it works. It definitely works. But you can see a lot of growth from just being on a platform like LinkedIn or Twitter or just Medium, the writing blog platform. But anyways, LinkedIn program. So I'm someone who I've had a LinkedIn profile. When I graduated from school, I used LinkedIn to connect with a mentor in Charlotte who was my alumni. I was moving to Charlotte, a new city. I was like, yo, I need help navigating this world. So I used LinkedIn Connected. So I've always appreciated that platform for relationship building. And one day I saw a post about this creator program they were starting and they had some money with it too. So I was like, yeah, I want to check that out. Let me get some. So yeah, I applied and they asked everyone, regardless of the theme of the program, they ask everybody to have kind of a mission for what your content is going to be about. Because LinkedIn is all about economic impact, helping people with that, whether it's career growth or something with entrepreneurship. They're really focused on communities and economic impact. So mine was taking the content I was talking about and really focusing in on the experiences of people working while Black, helping those who are feeling discouraged and want to learn how to move ahead. So I started I was selected. I was all that stuff. That was amazing. And I basically did a live show every week for 10 weeks. Did audio events, created short form video, articles, text posts. They wanted you to create content 4 times a week for 10 weeks straight, all around your premise, your topic. And that was their only criteria for real. Just keep creating content around your thing. So I did that, and that was really cool. I invited people who were in the program. I also invited people from past episodes, people I'd always wanted to interview to be a part of this community I wanted to build on LinkedIn, and just try to create resources and solutions and support systems for Black professionals. So it was really cool. It had people following me who weren't Black. I think actually there's a lot of really cool wins. One was someone messaged me saying something I created helped them with their navigating their career. Another person who wasn't Black was learning from it too, but also really appreciated learning more about the Black experience, and they were able to pull things that could help themselves. It was a really cool moment just to see also that, because I was nervous about creating the type of content on LinkedIn, a professional platform, supposed to be all stiff and all that, but seeing that people were ready for that type of conversation. And that means now I could go a little bit deeper into it and really start digging at the roots of the issue. So dope program. I'd highly recommend people check out LinkedIn. It's a place that there aren't like direct monetization things like YouTube and TikTok, but there are people who are serious about what they're trying to do. There's ways to collaborate, ways to make money. It's just, once again, about showing up and knowing what you want to.
Yeah. It's a lot like podcasting in a sense, right? You may not necessarily, there's always opportunity to make the money off the podcast primarily, but there's so many other ways based off the content itself and out of the branding and all of that sort of thing, to also create avenues of income based off of this content and your premise, like you said. So I think it's really important that you noted that, because it's important for people to understand that we are in a space now where we're getting that social media nonstop flashy, content. It's you could sit in a minute and get 50 to 70 pieces of content from all over the world. And I, as an older gentleman who started as an analog person where none of this stuff was invented, and now I'm in a life that it's like, what's happening? It's crazy sometimes for me. It can be a mind screw just sitting there. Like, I just consume like 70 different people across the world. And that's wild to me, all saying the various different things or doing various different things. And so I think it's what a time to be alive. I mean, that is amazing in and of itself, but it has sometimes the potential of level setting people on their ambition and what they're getting in it for,
Mhm.
can get a little skewed, right? And so it's important to mention that, like, you get selected by a program that's upper echelon. It's good stuff, right? And and you do the work and you follow the criteria and all that kind of stuff. And there are ways to monetize off of that. But yeah, there are also ways to monetize off of everything that you created and built there in the same vein.
Facts. That's true. And I'll even be transparent and share like I think what you mentioned about like there's so much out there now and it's so true. And I think sometimes that like I hear a lot of people say like, oh, there's so many other podcasts out there. We don't need another podcast. And it can be challenging. Like I applied for the Snapchat program, creator program. And that one was it was crazy. It was crazy, like a full year and the amount that they were investing in. And I knew my premise that I applied with, it was very solid, but I didn't get selected. And it's I realize now that there are so many different creators out there, but there are also so many different opportunities. We're not going to get selected for all of them. We can't take advantage of all of them, but like the Snapchat one, there's like three other programs that were similar to it on different platforms for different purposes. And so it's just a matter of continuing to show up and find the right ones for you. I
Mhm.
wasn't surprised I didn't get selected for Snapchat. I'm barely on it. And there's a few other things I'm like, okay, I don't have this, but I know the premise is good. I just don't have this and that. But yeah, we just gotta find believe in what we're doing, the purpose behind it, get help as well, because we're no longer in the place where we have to do it alone. There's
Yeah,
ways to build community of support, advisors, mentors, other creators that you could collab with. There's ways to do it now. I'm really focusing in on like I'm really loving the Wu-Tang approach is what I'm calling it right now. That's the mentality I have right now. Like how can I gather like all these people in my community who are dope at this, really good at that, and let's build off of each other for real. Not use each other, but build off of each other.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
opportunity.
and it's all about, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, because it has a lot of intentionality involved in it, right? And I believe, and I coach people around this, that intentionality accelerates the process. If you're moving around kind of aimlessly, don't really know what you need, who you need, where to go, then it can take a long time to get wherever you're wanting to go to meet those goals. But once you begin to identify, okay, a LinkedIn acceleration program could support the vision, so let me go for that. You
Yeah.
know, there's some people that I want to connect with that could help me collaborate and go towards this goal. So let me connect with those people and
Mm,
talk to them about it and begin to move it forward. That's how you begin to be so intentional about the process that it accelerates everything in a lot of ways. And so you talked about your growth in a year. A lot of that has to do with the intentionality behind the moves you made.
yeah. That's facts. Intentionality. It's like because and you know what else? It's like everything this like society we exist in, the way podcasts grow, there's like all these systems built like intentionally. So it's like if we're like you said, wandering around lost and not knowing what we're doing, it's like how do you expect to grow for real? And I think a
Yeah,
lot of us do. Like I've definitely had so many moments of feeling lost and no direction and
same.
always just lean back on the community. They help me see straight, remind me of where I'm going and why as well. So
Yeah.
like this moment here, I really appreciate just being here because you just almost jump started me in a way. Today was like a long day, so many different pieces moving, but it's like, oh yeah, and okay, yeah, this is why I'm doing it. Let's keep going. So I
Yeah, word up, word up. All right, that's what's up, man. So, we're gonna kind of get into a little bit more questions, and then we'll end this thing. I really have enjoyed the conversation so far. So when we talk about different wins and stuff like that for the podcast, or even for the content creation, because we're creatives. Um, the point and purpose of this community is that we have the opportunity to connect with each other on a base level, on a personal level, because we're people that happen to podcast, right? And so there's opportunities to connect us in different ways.
mm,
Um, So you have this content that you do on LinkedIn, which is super dope. You have your podcast, and you also have, other ways in which you support. So what would you say out of, this past 2022 would be your biggest win that you would consider?
Biggest win of 2022. I'd have to say the LinkedIn Creator Program. That program was dope. I met so many amazing creators. There are people who started following me because of that program who I've built a relationship as well. So it's just all around a lot of wins there. And also that built a lot of confidence for me in regards to what I was creating. I've always felt good about, be able to create content, teach people about content. But as far as the Boss Locks brand and that voice there, me being that voice, that was a really big moment for me. I'll probably never forget it. So yeah, 2022 it started January 10th, ended I think March 18th. And that was a very huge transformative period of time for me. So LinkedIn Creator Accelerator Program, biggest win of 2022. There are other big wins too, like getting invited to help build this podcast network, helping some businesses kind of with their content strategy. And also, I got to take a 2-week vacation, and that was amazing because that was a moment for me to experience rest.
Mhm.
I think we're in this go hustle world. And after that first full week of me doing nothing, I realized things like, oh, I'm not too distracted. I'm not lazy and I'm not motivated. It's just we live in this world where there's a lot of things that require our attention and focus, and it's okay. So that was a really dope moment for me and helped me realize why rest is important. And that's a huge part of my process now is rest. So I
That's
know that was
dope.
more than just one, but I had to throw
Oh,
those other
I
two in
love
there.
that. I love that, and it's important that we talk about rest. It's important on a lot of levels that you and I could get into, but we aren't going to do that. But it's important. Rest, 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 my people. Rest. You get to rest. 2023 goals that you are looking forward to creating.
Yes, 2023 goals, the Jordan year. I'm identifying what that means for me, but I know a few things is um some of them I can't mention yet because they're not fully finalized, but I could say I'm working on building a system for Black podcasters to uh have live in-person shows
Mhm.
here in Atlanta. So I'm excited about that project. I'm working on taking everything that I've been doing for my own brand and starting to create consistently, showing up and really be that content company that could stand out and is producing that top tier quality content. It's like before I was doing it, but it was a little bit here just on LinkedIn, just via this podcast. So now I'm close to being finished with the system so I could create in all places and also teach people like activists, small businesses, just how to use content to um, reach their mission, their goals. So accelerating my brand and accelerating other people's brands as well. All with content, all with content. I know it can be done. I'm excited to see other people win.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's my goal. Acceleration with content. Yeah, we'll keep it like that.
Nice, nice, nice. All right. So with that said, talk to us about what you're working on. What's upcoming for you as far as anything that you want to promote.
Yes. So I'm someone who always has something going on, but I decided to spend this first half of the year while I'm still working on finishing up my systems just to really help other people with their systems, with their content. People ask me a lot about podcasting content, so I decided to start offering some advisory and coaching services. So I'm going to start doing podcast reviews for free for people. And then for those who want to, actually get some like in-depth coaching, I'm going to pick a few people to do a 90-day content development to truly like get their shows, the premise together, their marketing plans, all that, how to produce a top tier show. and make it work within the tools and resources that are available to you, and then showing other tools to help you truly execute top tier. I've learned a lot just seeing behind the curtain and how it works with the top of the top people, and also like where that gap is. So I'm ready to kind of share that information. So yeah, I'd say for anyone, just go waltergainer.com. That's like my new operator site that I'm rolling out. And that's a place to just find everything. Connect with me to learn more about the shows I'm creating, or just talk with me about the shows you want to create, the businesses you're building, the brand you want to develop. So that's the
Okay.
thing.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. I know a lot of people will benefit from that. I know as far as I am in the career and on the outside looking in, everything looks amazing. And that's because it is. I love Afros and Audio Podcast Festival and Black Podcast Association that we work diligently on every day. But, it's super important to still be in the process of learning. And so I know that I've gone to is virtually. I've been on your some of your LinkedIn talks, and I come away with so much information and so many notes for myself to execute, because when you're in a doing, so a lot of times the opportunity to pause and listen to others and learn from others is important as well. So I've definitely benefited from the work and the content you've created. So I know for sure other people are, and as you move this forward.
I appreciate that, man. For real. Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you. I
no doubt.
appreciate the way you support. Um, it's inspiring, it's needed, it's always feel the love. So I appreciate you, man.
No doubt, no doubt. Thank you, man. So we're gonna close this up, but I want to ask you one other question, and that's I know you're a member of the Black Podcast Association. So I just wanted to check in with you, and if you could let the people know how that's benefited you, why you chose to join.
Yeah, that's a good question. Especially because like I've been a part of a lot of different podcast communities, and I think it's easy to find them and there's benefits to all of them. What I personally love about the Black Podcast Association is that when I'm in there, like every day when I check in, I'm learning from someone. There's like everyone, it doesn't even matter where they are. It's like it's this, I don't know what it is about it, but it's easy to learn from people. And it's like I never question the advice that's being given or shared, or even the perspectives. Even when I do disagree with something, I can see why that is a perspective and why they go about it, and it makes sense. And it's just a really amazing that it's a Black space as well on top of all of that. So it's like this community that people just right off the bat, they understand, even if you live a different lifestyle, because there's so many different ways to be Black. It's like this still feels like home. I saw someone post the other day. They're like, "Yeah, I'm back, y'all." It's like I've been to all these other places, but there's nothing felt like the Black Podcast Association. So I just appreciate this space exists. I think what's unique about it is that it's a community that's built to be a community, not built to be other things. Like I know the association, Afros and Audio, they have additional things that are being built, but this community is built just to be a community, and there's so much intention behind that. So I highly encourage everyone check it out, regardless of how long you're there. You're gonna walk away with something. At the very minimum, you're gonna walk away with a really dope relationship that you could build from. So join. I think it's a really dope time to join, because there's a lot of communities being built, and joining the association at this stage, I think there's a lot of ways for you to get involved, and in a lot of different ways. So I just see a lot of opportunities within it. I could keep talking forever about it.
No,
But
I definitely appreciate that, man. I'm glad you used the word intention, because I was going to follow up with that. It's intentional, it
yep.
really is. So I appreciate that you are having the experience that we intended for you to have as a member and a contributing member. People often miss the fact that you get out of something what you put in, right? And this space is an opportunity for us to put in ways that we can also benefit from. It's super important. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. Let people know how they can find you. You already mentioned the website, but anything else for social media, and you can obviously feel free to mention that again, and they'll be in the description as well.
Oh yes, I like to be in all places, so I got a presence everywhere. You can look Walter Gaynor the second, or the username is It's the Great Walt. Mention LinkedIn a lot because I'm on LinkedIn every day. Please DM me. You can follow me, but DM me because I like to meet new people, hear what you're about, see how we can support each other. And of course, you can just visit waltergaynor.com because that'll take you everywhere, everywhere and everything. Um, Centralized location. That's another goal for me this year. Just a central place, go one place, you can learn about everything. waltergaynor.com.
All right, man. Well, thank you again for being here. I'm going to close this out, and please just stay right there with us. All right. All right. So I want to give a big thanks to our Afros and Audio and Black podcast community for supporting our commitment for community and collaboration. If you'd like to join the Black Podcast Association, the link will be in the description below. And if you want to join us at the 5th annual Afros and Audio Podcast Festival, visit bit.ly, AFAU, FAQ, which will also be in the description. Follow us on all social media channels at Afros and Audio. Thanks again, Walter, for being a part of Afros and Audio's first ever Black History Month interview series. Appreciate your time, man.
I appreciate this. Thank you.
No doubt. All right.